information on the SERB and federal programs in relation to fisheries, which has been provided by our partner from MNP, Ryan Hales. Today's webinar, again, as I mentioned, our panel representatives will be Ryan Hales from MNP. Ryan is a partner and business advisor in MNP's Terrace office, a member of the Indigenous Services team. Ryan delivers a full suite of assurance and accounting solutions, as well as customized advice to First Nations communities, governments, and business groups. Welcome, Ryan. And our second panelist is Beverly Isaac, who is the Deputy Director of Programs and Services with Nisga'a government. Beverly's Nisga'a name is Izak, and she belongs to Ximsan and resides in the community of Kitwin-Sit. Bev has been with NLG since the fall of 2012 and has worked in the fields of administration, education, counseling, health, and careers in language and culture for the past 23 years. She holds a master's certificate in project management, a bachelor's degree in education with a professional year in special education, and certificate in community linguistics. She's currently the deputy director alongside the director of programs and services. She supports collaboration with the Nisga'a villages, meeting with the educational service providers, and supporting policy review of the Nisga'a education planning of the Nisga'a Education Conference, and support to FFA reporting. Bev appreciates the Nisga'a education involves lifelong learning and that it is a way of life, words so eloquently communicated by the late Alvin and Bert McKay. She understands that formal education, as well as being immersed in cultural connections, enhances the development of children and youth, family, and community that strengthens the nation's prosperity. She agrees with the messaging that while we navigate through this time we are in, we'll all get through this together. So welcome, Bev. And our third panelist is Ms. Eliza Haldeen, who is the coordinator of the Lessons Early Learning Partnership, or LELP. Eliza resides in the community of Izak. She has been in the field of early childhood care and education for 12 plus years, and is championed for success by 6 as the LELP coordinator for 8 plus years. As the LELP coordinator, alongside 20 plus Indigenous and non-Indigenous partners, Eliza supports our 4 beautiful Nisga'a communities of Gingol, Gidlakdamix, Kitwin-Sit, and Lakalzet. And Eliza is passionate about the wonders of brain development and self-regulation in the early years. She believes connection, equity, and empathy are key in our work for a better tomorrow. Her drive comes from the written words of Dr. Gabar Mate, Dr. Gordon Newfield, and Dr. Bruce Perry, Dr. Dan Siegel, and Dr. Vanessa Lapointe. She has dedicated her life's work to closing the gap of intergenerational trauma to improve the quality of life for her people and the Indigenous people of BC. Welcome, Liza. And our fourth panelist is a representative of School District number 92. He's the current superintendent of schools for School District number 92 in Nisga'a. And he is soon to be the superintendent of 4081 42nd Street, farm retiring, that is. So he's had 41 years as an educator, high school science, math. He's been a PE teacher and a principal of 4 different high schools. He was also the director of education and the superintendent of Cowichan Valley School District, the superintendent of School District number 92 in Nisga'a for the last 3 years. And he is passionate about creating multiple pathways for students to succeed. Welcome, Mr. Rhodes. And our fifth is Ms. Rochelle Moore, who is the Employment and Education Manager with the Nisga'a Village Government of Kitwin-Sith. Welcome, Rochelle. And excuse me as I'm going back and forth between my document and the screen here. I'm just checking to see if we have, oh yes, we do. So we have our next panelist, who is Dr. Deanna Nice. I had the good fortune of witnessing Dr. Nice defend her dissertation at UBC last year. Dr. Nice is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Wilpelcos Nisga'a Institute, located in Kitwin-Sith, and that serves the entire Nass Valley and Nisga'a Nation. Welcome, Dr. Nice. And our final panelist is Mr. Gary Patsy, who is the manager of Nisga'a Employment Skills and Training, or NEST. Gary is an experienced executive with a history of working in government, private sector, nonprofit, and engagement industry. He excels in labor market strategy, engagement, strategic planning, and telecommunications planning. Using tools and methodologies from Indigenous and non-Indigenous frameworks, he's dedicated to the fusion of Indigenous worldviews with Western or contemporary constructs to achieve a collaborative and productive space for growth and success of Indigenous aspirations and success overall. Welcome, Gary. And I'd also like to welcome and thank for her able assistance behind the scenes with tech support, Ms. Destiny Clayton, who is always here to offer her support and technical assistance as required. So, oops, sorry. Just a bit of an overview of our agenda. I've just completed our introductions of our panelists. We will then get into our presentations because this is our largest panel to date. So we've timed it at about 6 to 7 minutes for each panelist to provide a very high level overview of their response to COVID-19 to enable the continuity of their educational service delivery during this unprecedented time. Following their respective presentations, which should take us to about 40 minutes, we will then enter into a question and answer dialogue. And just for our participants that have joined us this afternoon, welcome. You'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a Q&A button there that you could press to offer any comments or questions to any of the panelists in relation to their presentations this afternoon. So without further ado, I'll give my voice a break and I'll welcome our first presenter, who is going to provide us some overview of the federal and provincial programs in relation to education this afternoon. So Ryan Hales of MMP, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bobby, and thanks to all the panelists for joining us today, and then for all the participants who tuned in, and thanks again for everybody for including me in this. It's been a lot of fun so far, and so looking forward to another great webinar here. Today, I thought I would talk about two programs that tie into education and supports for students, particularly support for post-secondary students or recent graduates from post-secondary. So those two programs are the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, the CESB, and also the Canada Students Service Grant, CSSB. So first, the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. So this is a program that's intended to somewhat mirror the Canada Emergency Response Benefit that's available for people who might be out of work. And so what this program does is it provides supports to students and new graduates who may not be eligible for the CERB, just because they may not have had the hours or working requirements that are required under that program. And what it provides is a benefit from May to August of 2020, where students can earn up to $1,000 from per month from other sources and still be eligible for the CESB. So that's a great program that's out there if you're graduating or just on your summer break from university or college or other trades training, and because of COVID you've had difficulty finding work. So a little bit about the program. The eligibility requirements: you must be a Nisga'a citizen, Canadian citizen, or another permanent resident in Canada. There's no age restrictions, so if you've been attending post-secondary, regardless of what your age is, you could be eligible for this program. And then when you apply, there's a number of kind of assertions that you must make. So you must say that you're unable to work or are seeking but have not been able to find work as a result of COVID, and that if you are working, you're not making more than $1,000 per month for the period. And so what that can mean is if you know you were a university or a post-secondary student and maybe you could find work but you can't find childcare, just much like the CERB, that you would still be eligible for this program. So that's kind of some high-level highlights. So there are a couple categories of students that are eligible for the CESB. So first off, you could have been enrolled in a post-secondary education program. You might have recently graduated from a post-secondary program. So if you've graduated in December 2019 or later, you would still fit within this program. Or if you're a student who's recently completed high school and you would be maybe going into your first semester of post-secondary in the coming fall semester, you would be eligible for this program as well, assuming you meet all of the other application requirements. And then much like the other programs, the application is on the Government of Canada website. So you can do it through CRA's My Account, which is fairly easy to set up. You'll need to have filed a tax return or have a social insurance number and that in order to set that account up. So that's a highlight of the CESB, and the benefit just from that program is a little different than the CERB, but it provides $1,250 per month for eligible students, or up to $2,000 per month for students with dependents or disabilities. So there's a little bit of a different criteria there on what maybe make you eligible. And I think, as everybody can hopefully see now, Bobby's sharing his screen here. So we've got a briefing memo with all this information and more up on the NLG website under the COVID supports. So that's the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. And then a more recent or initially planned at the same time, but the official launch of the website came out on June 25th, is the Canada Student Service Grant. And so what this program is it provides a grant of between $1,000 and $5,000 for students who volunteer during their time off because of COVID and during summer months. So I think this is a really neat program. And the other kind of interesting piece about this is that it doesn't have to necessarily be in-person volunteering. There's a nice large data bank of volunteer opportunities. So again, for this one, eligibility requirements: you must be, either a Nisga'a citizen, a Canadian citizen, permanent resident of Canada. So the very similar requirements. You must be age under 30 as of December 31st, 2020. So that's this coming December. And you must be enrolled part-time or full-time in a recognized post-secondary education program, or have completed your program in December of 2019 or later. So you can be in your first year post graduation from that program. And then again, this would apply for high school students who just graduated and have registered for a fall semester. And there's a fairly large variety of post-secondary education programs that apply, but certainly any university or college, any trades training. If you're going to WWN, that would be an applicable education institution. So a pretty wide range of what qualifies you for this program. Another interesting fact with this program is you can stack the CESB, so the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, and this student service grant. So if you're not able to find work because of COVID and you're receiving the CESB, you can also volunteer and still receive $1,000 to $5,000 depending on the hours you volunteer under this program. So I think that's a really great program and an extra support for students. There are two websites which are referenced here, and I can see them on the screen here for the application process. So anybody who's interested in this, I would encourage you to go check out the jobbank.gc.ca/volunteer/initiative or the iwanttohelp.org website. Those are both linked on the briefing that's on the NLG website. And even before applying, you can go through and look at some of the opportunities that are there for volunteering. And for those of you that maybe work with a not-for-profit organization and could use some volunteers, you can also go through these websites and register your not-for-profit and create some volunteer opportunities for students. So I think there's a great opportunity to connect two groups there that both might be needing some help during these COVID times. And so just another quick highlight, I think, on the student support grant is if you have already been volunteering, those hours can count towards work. So you do, though, have to register by August 21st, which is coming up in a month and a half here. So important if you're considering this program to go and register as soon as you can. And that's kind of the highlight of the two programs that I wanted to bring forward. I think we can move on to the next presenter now.
And again, just note to our participants, if you have questions for any of the panelists, we'll complete the presentations first, and then we'll go into a Q&A session following each of their presentations. So I will now welcome our second panel presenter, and that's Ms. Beverly Isaac, the Deputy Director of Programs and Services, to lead off this next round of presentations. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you, Bobby, and good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to share a little bit of how Nisga'a government provides for education with respect to the treaty. As Deputy Director, one of my roles is to ensure the ongoing communication between each of the educational service providers. So in the treaty and the Government Act and Programs and Service Delivery Act, they'll be recognized as the nursery program, the K-12 program, the access to post-secondary program, and the post-secondary instruction. So for nursery, we do provide support to each of the Head Start, childcare or nursery programs, preschool programs in each of the 4 villages. Excuse me. In addition, we also ensure the communication and support to School District 92, developing our relationship with the superintendent and the board, ensuring that the K-12 instruction is being provided. And for the post-secondary instruction or access to post-secondary programs, we work closely with the education administrators for each of the village governments, reviewing the policy and working together and collaborating on how we can be more efficient and effective in providing service to our citizens. We also maintain communication with WWNI, who provides for the post-secondary instruction. So in terms of COVID, we're still providing for the communication and relationship and providing for collaboration. We meet bi-weekly to receive updates. Initially, the communication was a lot, and we were meeting extensively because we were receiving updates and seeing how we could collaborate to support the students, especially the K-12 and the post-secondary. But we also included the preschool because the centers were all closed. So all of the communication, we wanted to ensure that if Nisga'a government, or we could or if there was possibilities for each of us to support each other, then it would be a good opportunity to meet on a bi-weekly basis and exchange information and ensure that no one falls through the cracks, so to speak. So the COVID program there is no program. The COVID funding, there wasn't any specifically for education, but it was delivered in a way that each of the service providers have been providing for, and they'll inform you of that. I have to say that despite all of the challenges, especially with having to stay home and instruction for K-12 stopping as well as preschool, they did really well in planning for our people and supporting them. In addition to post-secondary, our students having to also study at home and still complete the semester or their programs. So I appreciate each of the panelists attending with us and providing the support. The FFA support and communication is through communication. So we do receive reports from each of the village governments and the education service providers for each of the 4 programs. And yeah, we welcome any questions, and we continue to work collaboratively, and hope you'll be able to gather a lot of information, and we hope that your the services that you're receiving during this time are beneficial, and that you're all safe. That's all I have right now, Bobby.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Bev. We will move right along now, and as you will note from our my introduction of the panelists, we'll move from early childhood education up through K-12, and then on to information on accessing post-secondary education funding, and then leading into post-secondary education delivery and instruction, and then anchoring off with some information from employment skills and training. So with that, I'd like to now welcome Ms. Eliza Haldeen, the coordinator of the Listens Early Learning Partnership. Welcome, Liza.
Amasa, good afternoon. So I'd just like to apologize in advance. I'm in a car in Terrace, so I'm doing my best to keep my focus in the meeting. So as you guys are aware, all over the province, early childhood education centers are starting to, or remained open. Some of them remained open due to the fact that we were considered an essential service. And so there's probably some questions around, why did some centers stay open and some closed? And as doors are reopening, some centers are choosing to reopen. But here in the NAS, there's still a transition plan or transition plans that are in the works to begin opening our doors. So because they were considered an essential service through COVID, some daycares did keep their doors open throughout the province. Some of the challenges that came with that after being on numerous Zoom meetings were the social distancing, the challenges of being in a center where all of the values and the education that we're taught as early childhood educators around relationships and having that closeness, being able to hold the child, comfort a child, face-to-face, were not easily managed through the COVID. So when I hear that and then I look at what we've done in the NAS, I feel that for the betterment of our children, closing our doors was the best solution around working with children and families, because that is a very intimate kind of education when you work that closely with children and families. It does mean a lot of like social distancing would be nearly impossible to teach a toddler or a preschooler. They wouldn't understand. And so when I think about some of the harm that we probably could have, or the challenges that we would have had around teaching children in that manner, educators were frustrated that around their own social distancing, having to wear gloves and masks, etc. And when I think about that, I think about how traumatic that could have been for some children, especially children with limited communication or with special needs of any sort, trying for them to understand what was happening within their centers. So having said that, you can see a trend that is occurring where it's in the NAS that we're still looking at a transitional plan that's going to be best for each community. It's individually based, where I'm in full support of. I know that there are a lot of parents in need of childcare, and that's a struggle, and that's probably causing some undue stress and hardship in the home. However, in order to provide quality care in a center, you need staff that are able to leave sort of their post-COVID situation behind them and move forward. There's also new ways of the new norms that we're seeing, like within restaurants, what we're seeing still happening in the stores where there's certain directions you have to walk, new policies, and it's similar in early childhood education. So I know each center licensing is requesting new policies and procedures around sick, around pickup and drop off, around transportation, and those sorts of where there's going to be contact with families. And so those things do take time to develop and then transition with your staff so that your staff is fully on board and everybody understands the new policies and procedures, and there becomes a new sort of norm comfort level of doing childcare that way. And so in order to not create any more stresses for children in particular, and their families, we want to ensure sort of a seamless transition from COVID to reopening the doors. So for example, in regards to a policy, I know I can only speak for our center at this moment, but here in Knuckles Up, is that the sick policy, at one point, we allowed children in with a variation of a cold, whether it was a runny nose or a bit of a cough. One of our early childhood educators, as an early childhood educator, we believe you can't keep a common cold out of a center. However, if they had infections or fevers, they would have to go home. Well, the policy is going to be completely shifted where that child sneezes a few times or there's some coughing or any sign of the common cold, they will be sent home or isolated, and then until someone can arrive to bring the child home. So there'll be new health screenings. We'll also have one family policies where within the entranceway, there'll be a new way of working for the next 8 to 12 months. So one of the big things around early childhood education, and when we look at working with children, is that we're looking for an environment that's stress-free. We're looking for environments where there is a priority around the sort of the connections with kids. And so for us, we didn't want to open our doors in a situation where we still would have to wear gloves, we still would have to wear the face masks, where we would have to somehow practice some kind of social distancing, where we would limit children at centers. From our perspective, why open the doors when we're going to create these situations for children that are become stressful, not understanding? Children need an open environment, open, safe environment to explore in order for real learning to occur, and need to have free range, an environment they need to be able to learn in that sort of exploration indoors and outdoors. And so we're just making sure that as we're moving along, that the transition, like if we give ourselves a bit more time where we can build the policy so that we don't have to wear the gloves or we don't have to wear the face masks, and that we have proper screening and policies in place. So that's kind of where we're at from a big picture standpoint. I've had some phone calls from some of the communities that are also sort of like, are your doors open? What is happening in your community? And so we're starting to have some communication around sharing some policies and procedures. And I'm really advocating that centers are ready to open those doors before they do, that their staff are fully on board. A lot of these staff themselves were at home with their own children or put in a different area of work for 3-4 months now. And so, you know, having them completely go back into an environment with children and families without sort of some kind of transition, I think would create some unnecessary havoc in a center. People need to be able to start to get comfortable working together once again closely, and just reviewing their values, their roles, their responsibilities in the center, and just bringing back what early childhood education is all about. And I do feel like COVID has sort of put us some steps back in regards to be able to be providing that quality care. So in a nutshell, I know in our community, we're looking at a September start, just so that we can get staff. I'm going to advocate that our staff come back on board for at least 4 weeks without any children, so that once again, we get comfortable with one another. We can have some post-COVID debriefing, because everybody's human and everybody's had some issues around COVID, whether they had to go home and go on CERB or the isolation of it. I mean, we're already living in isolated communities, and then on top of that, we're put in situations where, you know, we can't just go out to town when we need things without having to become even more isolated with staying at home. So having said that, that's where we're at. We're looking at a transition for those centers. There is, BC Acts does have a $10,000 grant available. It's a very simple process. It's to support the reopening of your doors. So whatever resources might be needed, cleaning supplies, even wages to bring staff back on, any kind of training that may be required, all of that. So if you go onto BC Access portal, which is the BC Aboriginal Childcare Society of BC, there's a link on there to register for that. So it's up to $10,000. It's a very simple process. It's basically free money to help people transition into that opening. And for those sites that are currently receiving or just going back into their buildings, you can receive an emergency fund through childcare operating as well if you were already part of their childcare operating funding program. So you can receive 2 times the amount if your doors are closed, and once you reopen your doors, 7 times the funding allotment. So all those sites in BC that remained open during COVID were available for up to 7 times their government funding for that one pot. So but that will be ending in August, I think, is the last installments of those. So I think my 6 minutes are up. And if I went over a minute or 2, I apologize. But if anybody has any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to share more.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Eliza. That's some great information. So again, as Eliza notes, if anyone has questions for any of our panelists, you could provide it by typing or clicking on the Q&A box at the bottom and then entering your question there. So moving along, we'll now welcome Mr. Joe Rhodes, who is our representative from School District number 92 Nisga'a. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Bobby, and welcome everyone, and thank you again for the opportunity. I guess on a very high level view of K-12 education from COVID, March 13th, we all left spring break, thinking things would be normal. March 16th, the province announced that all in-class instruction was to cease. So quite honestly, my spring break went from 2 weeks where I thought I was going to be on holiday to 2 weeks of 16-hour days trying to figure out how we were going to make that work. We returned from spring break to students having to begin to try to learn from a distance, and staff having to learn how to teach them from a distance. We quickly discovered that technology was both a challenge and internet access was a challenge for staff and for some families. So with the wonderful support from NLG and from village governments and School District 92, we managed to rally as much extra technology for families that we could, and provide at least every family with some degree of technology, and NLG was able to provide internet access in a very quick manner so that we could at least begin to communicate. So over the next few weeks, teachers acquired some expertise with Teams and Zoom, and students began to learn how to access, and the conversations between the two groups began, and learning started. Additionally, we were putting together learning packages on a weekly basis for families to pick up and take home. And so that journey was slow. It was painful in many ways. It was a struggle. But despite all that, there was some wonderful learning that took place. And some, I say the greatest asset of COVID was the connection, the stronger connections that were built between families and the schools. And so along came the June 1st, and the province decided to divide the education restart plan into 5 phases. Phase 1 being that is normal, is what we know. Every kid goes to school every day and gets direct service. Phase 5 being where we went to on March 16th, which is a complete shutdown and all services being provided online or at a distance. And phases 4, 3, and 2 were gradual return of more and more students to direct service. So we slid into what was called phase 4, which is basically almost all kids are still doing online learning, but the need to provide direct service for our essential workers and for kids who are vulnerable and kids who were at risk, and kids who had diverse abilities began to surface. And so we slowly introduced some children back into school for partial days and partial days of the week. Around June 1st, the province announced that they were going to move to phase 3, which meant that K-5 students would be able to attend school for 2 to 3 days a week, and grades 6 to 12 would be able to attend for 1 to 2, with again, essential workers kids still being able to attend on a regular basis. At that point, the Nisga'a Nation was not comfortable with the province's aggressive return, I guess, to having students. And so their recommendation to the district, a strong recommendation, was that no, we're not going to move to phase 3. We're going to stay where we are and wait and see what happens. And so in the month of June, which was intended to be a practice session for schools to figure out how to social distance, how to have increased hygiene, and work with both direct service to kids as well as continuing online service. So our teachers went back to the schools after a week or so that they could at least practice the procedures and get ready for students. And but we never actually brought very many more kids back. We brought a few more kids back, particularly some of the grade 12s who were scrambling to try to still graduate and needed extra support. And so happily, the result of that was that we've had despite COVID, we had one of our largest graduation classes in recent years. We had 20 students that received dogwoods. And so, and we're hoping that a few of them still had a little bit of work to finish at the end of June. We're certainly hoping that they completed that and they actually officially do get their dogwood. So that brings us to the summer, where everybody kind of left wondering what was September going to bring. And the provincial hope is that we will move back to phase 1. That's the dream. And that would be everybody attends school every day and school returns as normal, and we don't have to social distance. We probably still have to have some hygiene regulations that are increased. But in order for that to happen, the provincial health authorities would have to grant that it is safe for us to return with all students. What appears to be most likely is a return in September at phase 3 or phase 2. Phase 2 is when K to 7 kids would go to school all day, every day, and the 6 to 12s would go for up to 2 days, or sorry, the 8 to 12 would go up for up to 2 days a week. That's phase 2. I don't know whether the province will even go that far, and then we will need to wait and see what the Emergency Preparedness Committee is comfortable with us doing and with what NLG is prepared. They may still not be willing to go at the rate that the province is, and we take our direction from them as a nation. So more likely we'll be possibly moving in at some version of phase 3, which is again, K to 5 is there 2 to 3 days a week, and the 6 to 12s would be 1 to 2 days a week. And we would have to continue with some degree of online learning until it becomes safe. So that's kind of the high level. We probably won't know until the province probably won't make its decision till it sees how the pandemic responds over the summer and sort of what the level of communication is, and whether it's continuing to be at the slow rate that it is right now, or whether summer brings on an increase. And so about the middle of August, the province will likely announce what stage schools will open up as, and then we will consult with the nation to see if that works for the nation as well. And so we'll be in touch with there. But the stage 1 through 5 is probably going to linger, as Liza said, for the next 8 to 12 months, as we see, because the prediction is that there'll probably be a resurgence in the fall or in the spring of the virus spreading, and we have to learn to move seamlessly between the phases as the pandemic increases or decreases, and as the provincial health authority gets worried or feels safe. So that's kind of where we're at, and I think I'll leave it there. And I just want to say it's been it's been a really positive, collaborative effort on the efforts of all who've been involved. Everybody has stepped up to the plate and tried to help where they could, providing resources, providing alternative ways to get food to our families. It's just been, from that side of it, it's been a real challenge, but it's been a real positive in many ways. And lots of great learning has taken place. And I think the use of technology and the tools that technology offers, our teachers have become much more skilled, and will probably continue to use those skills regardless of what phase we're in. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll leave it at that.
And thank you, Mr. Rhodes. If you're just joining us, welcome. This is our weekly webinar on featuring education. So we have representatives from the Nisga'a Education Service Providers group. We've heard from Beverly Isaac, who's the Deputy Director of Programs and Services, Eliza Haldeen, who's the coordinator of LISM's Early Learning Partnership. Joe Rhodes has just completed his presentation, and we'll be moving on to Rochelle Moore. Following Rochelle will be Dr. Deanna Nice, and concluding the panel presentations will be Gary Patsy of NEST. So Rochelle, I know we have her on video, but she's dialed in by her phone for audio. So we'll try to figure this out.
You are unmuted.
Okay, now I'm gonna mute your phone, your audio, if I can.
Hi, good afternoon.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Rochelle Francois, and I'm with the Education and Employment for Gitwanswick Village Government. I'm pleased to present on behalf of Gitwanswick for our post-secondary program. When this pandemic started, it affected all of our lives back in March, and it was uncertain times for our loved ones, and everyday life was put to a halt. Gitwanswick Village Government remained open throughout the pandemic, and it was business as usual, but following COVID-19 restrictions, our sanitation in our office, and following social distancing practices. Our managers for each department were available to our citizens and to have direct contact by email or telephone, or set up an appointment while practicing social distancing and COVID-19 measures. Our post-secondary was challenging when the pandemic first started, and we kept in close contact with our post-secondary students. We assisted the students with special circumstances funds for their additional sanitizing needs, as well as additional food expenses while in isolation. We kept in contact with students and institutions while they completed their courses via distance learning. We kept in contact with our students and instructors for any extensions they required. We assisted our students with travel back to the communities to finish their courses via distance learning. We continued to receive applications for the June 15th deadline. And we also continue to support our continuing students so that they could meet all the requirements to move on to the next semester. Throughout this whole pandemic, post-secondary students, the institutions, the support staff have all been patient and working together to get through the COVID-19 measures. And we will continue to support our post-secondary students in this uncertain time. Thank you, Bobby.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Very good information. Thank you. Moving along, I'd like to now welcome Dr. Deanna Nice, representing the Wilpilkhas Nisga'a Institute. Deanna, if you could enable your video and audio so we could see you. And while she's doing that, just a note to our participants and attendees, we are just about concluding our presentations. So if you have a question for panelists, you may enter them at the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Dr. Nice, welcome.
Thank you. Can you see me? Oh, I've still got it on. There we go. Hi, there we are.
There you
go. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's great to hear your voices and your stories and your tremendous amount of work that you've been doing during this very difficult time that COVID brings us. At the beginning of COVID, we operated very, very quickly because we had to find an alternate way of delivering classes that were already in session. And so we had to send out a number of communiques to students so that they had the step-by-step procedure on how to access their classes and their instructors. And there were many of us who helped from the sidelines behind the students to make sure that they were able to complete their courses. And I'm very happy to say that the students adjusted very, very well. And we have some students who are elderly, who are working on the full BA degrees, which is kind of cool. And they also have stepped up. And so it's amazing. What Joe has said about like for WWN and the universities, they're still closed to students. The staff are still in attendance. Some are working from home. Some are working from the office. Finance mostly works in the office and administration. So we're anticipating that we're going to be continuing to deliver the way we are delivering now. We're using Zoom, audio, and other modes of technology for delivering to students. It's going to be very interesting. We have ethnobotany course that's running at WWN from August 2nd to the 8th. And it's full. So the registration is closed for that now because it's full and we've got a wait list. So we may run this course again. But it's really interesting because we have students that are coming in now from other places. So we have students from the NAS communities. We have students from Terrace, from Calgary, from other places I don't even know where they are located, but they're somewhere in BC. And then we also have students coming in from other universities. Because they can shop around, and through the Western Dean's Agreement, they can take courses in other universities. So we have first one coming in from UBC, who's taking ethnobotany with us in August. So we're pretty excited about that. And we anticipate our fall semester will go the same way. The courses are open now for registration, so students can register. And a shout out to Gingolik, if they can. They may have missed the deadline though for funding, but there were a number of students in Gingolik who are working on language and culture certificates and wanted to complete the Nisga'a certificate. They can do that. I think they can do that now. They can contact Lori at WWN to find out how they can do how to sign up. I think that's it in a nutshell because it's covered off already by Joe and others before me. The pandemic is expected to continue on. They're expecting a resurgence in the fall, and hopefully that will continue to stay safe and healthy in the Northwest and in the Nass Valley. And then they're really hoping that, and they don't know it yet, but they're really hoping that they'll have a vaccine in the new year. So we could well go into one whole calendar year of some kind of COVID, whatever area we're going to be able to, is 1, 2, 3, or full opening up. I don't think that will be full opening up between now and next March. Myself and talking with other folks in the university business. So with that, Bobby, I'm open for questions. I welcome them. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Nice. And again, just a reminder to our participants, if you have questions, you may pose them by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And with that, we'll invite our final panelist, who is Mr. Gary Patsy, and Gary has a visual that I will be loading shortly. So Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, everybody, to all participants and to my fellow panelists. It's good to see and hear everybody as well. I'm really pleased to be a part of this panel and presenting information to Nisga'a citizens and those interested in education during COVID. Bobby, I'm not sure if I have control or if you're flipping through the slides. So Nisga'a Employment Skills and Training, very briefly, we've been established since 2013. We received blended funding from Canada and BC, and as such, we are under their jurisdiction, partly with respect to health protocols, and of course, overarching that is Nisga'a government's health protocols and Nisga'a Valley Health Authority as well. We proudly serve the Nisga'a Nation by providing demand-driven training and skills development. We have offices in Gillick-Damics, Terrace, and Prince Rupert. Back in 2018, we designed a NEST training model, and I wanted to kick off my presentation by discussing this. You can see there are pillars or steps, if you will, that Nisga'a citizens go through and as they start to enter the workforce through to employment and advancement. NEST has provided various programs and funding to help Nisga'a citizens through each one of these steps, and those funding programs continue to be offered right through COVID as well. So some of our support streams that remain available through this pandemic, we've switched up a bit in terms of branding and packaging just to try to stay top of mind. So our first NEST support stream is called NEST 1. This is individualized training for Nisga'a citizens wishing to enter the workforce or get recertification. We also do pre-training, self-awareness and self-confidence upskilling. We also work at delivering soft skill training, essential skills, and we provide job start supports as well, such as childcare when and where it's available, personal protective equipment, mobility to the work site to start a new job. And a new one that we've just rolled out this year is a NEST Post-Secondary Employment Assistance Program. This is to support employment advancement in the workplace. Our other stream is, again, we've just launched this year in response both to COVID-19 as well as meeting Nisga'a citizens where they're at. The underlying assumptions and issues that underpin this stream is that plans and inspiration and ideas to continue on or move to employment don't always happen between 9 to 5 during office hours. So what we're doing at NEST is endeavoring to put as many supports, information, applications online. And this includes upskilling and training for professionals, again, employment best practices for job seekers, and other training that Nisga'a citizens may require while they're at work. Our third support stream is our conference-based or web seminar-based service. We brand as NEST 360. Essentially, it's informational group sessions, participation in webinars such as this, conferences, workshops that are of greater interest, and open attendance with some registration. We've held some in the past, you may recall, co-sponsored by Pretium, co-sponsored by Avanti, and we've had another very successful conference sponsored by Western Economic Development Diversification with respect to safety in an LNG industry and employment opportunities and contracting opportunities. They are generally very regional in nature, and we target specific industries or sectors to support Nisga'a citizens and their workforce attachment. This is the stream that is most affected by COVID-19, where we have to explore and understand what best practices are available that allows us to adhere to health protocols as well as deliver the information therein. Our fourth stream, very simply called NEST Cohort. It's targeted group training that will fill a known labor market gap. For instance, our most recent, the one that we're planning to launch is Essential Skills. It's a cohort training program. We've done others in environmental monitoring, driller's assistance, mining safety. These again are affected by health protocols. We will be delivering this training in a safe, physically distant manner, as well as exploring how our training service providers can deliver this online to maximize the certification offerings. Throughout all the pandemic, we also understand that major projects have to proceed, whether it's in mining, LNG, the BC infrastructure program. BC is working hard at restarting the economy, and BC is in phase 3, as we know. In that regard, NEST continues to engage major projects and other major employers that are active in the region. And we continue to collaborate to identify information about workforce plans. We continue to workforce skill sets, and we continue to identify and reveal contracting opportunities for Nisga'a entrepreneurs and businesses. So through the pandemic, our eligible applicants have not changed. If you're a Nisga'a citizen in the workforce or wanting to participate in the workforce and you're age 16 or older, you're eligible to apply for any one of our programs and any one of our funding streams. And when you apply, you will be required to fill out a NEST participant information form and provide a valid Nisga'a citizenship number. Our NEST staff, we continue to have our full complement of support staff in New Ianch at our head office. We have Catherine Clayton, Kalani Morgan, who's our Pathways Coordinator, Stephanie Izak, Employment Advisor, Bryn Murphy, Essential Skills Facilitator, Jean Clayton, Essential Skills Coordinator. In Terrace, we have Ms. Dina Campbell, Employment Advisor. In Prince Rupert, we have Ms. Carmen Adams, Employment Advisor, and of course, yours truly, Gary Patsy, the manager. That concludes my presentation and high-level presentation today, Bobby. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope everyone continues to stay safe and be well, and hopefully everybody's smokehouses are full and very active. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you to each of the panelists for very efficient use of your limited time. I know it had to have been challenging given all of the hard work and innovation you've had to incorporate into our new normal and delivering your very important education services. So we're going to get into question and answer now. And as we put a notice out on our website last week that this webinar would be taking place, and also welcome the submission of questions for any of the panelists. And so I'll just go over a few of them that have come in advance. And just to remind you again, if you're an active participant right now and have a question for any of our panelists, to just enter them by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom. So Ryan, a couple have come in relation to the federal programs. Again, it's always important to know how these federal programs align with each other, and whether you're eligible for both or not. So this is one of the questions in relation to that. I've already applied for the CERB, and so can I apply for the CESB as well?
Thanks, Bobby, and that's a good question. So the short answer to that one is no. So those programs are intended to be sibling or parallel programs, if you will. So the CESB is intended to catch those coming out of post-secondary or recent high school graduates that for one reason or another, likely because they haven't been working and been going to school instead, aren't eligible for CERB. So that's where the CESB steps in. And then again, because of that, the Canada Student Service Grant can be stacked with the CESB because it's intended to support students. So it's a separate program kind of on a different stream that can be stacked on top of the CESB. So hopefully that answers that one.
Yes, thank you for that. And one of our live questions that came in from the attendee this afternoon, this is for Dr. Nice. Will there be a virtual master's program in the near future?
I love that question. Thank you very much. And hi, Pauline. It's good to hear from you. I hope so. We tried to run one and get people registered in the spring. However, there were a number of turnovers at the university, and we didn't, they've advertised now for a chair of the department for First Nations Studies. And so when these folks come into place, and that's been challenging as well, that's one of the challenges that COVID has brought, because when you're hiring people, we're having to do it like this. over Zoom and interviews over Zoom and things like that. It's quite interesting. But anyway, we hope to. So if you're interested, it will be a master's degree of arts in First Nation Studies, which is building up on the BA that we do, but that we currently do. And when we were looking at it, there's some really interesting courses in there that I think would help people in just about any field with a master's degree in arts. Mostly to help government employees in management areas, those kinds of things. And so yes, we're hoping so. So when the new chair is appointed, I will be there and at the university, and I'll be saying we're ready to go. So I've also checked to see if we'd be able to if we'd have the finances to do it, and I think currently we will have the finances to run that program, as the students' fees help pay for the program. Good question, Pauline. Great to hear from you.
Great, thank you, Deanna. And another live question for Mr. Patsy. Will your PowerPoint presentation, can it be available and sent by email?
Yes, absolutely. We can make that available. Please call our office or send me an email, garyp@nisga'a.net, and I'll be happy to send it out to you as requested. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Gary. Okay, so again, getting into some of the questions that we received in advance of this webinar. Eliza, this one would be for you in terms of registration deadlines for Head Start programs. What are those deadlines typically?
So there's actually no hard and fast rules around registration. Enrollment and attendance is really based on what a center is licensed for. So for example, in Lac we're licensed for 4 infant toddlers, 8 multi-age, which is anywhere from 3 to 6 years of age. And then we have 20 preschoolers. We're licensed for 20 preschoolers, and then we're licensed for 20 after school kids. So it all depends on the center's license. So, and I know some of the smaller communities, their licenses aren't as large. And it is based on how many educators or how many staff you have available. There's certain requirements through licensing for how many children can be with one child care provider. So I know I can't speak for the other sites, but I know our practice is that we don't turn anybody away. So if there's any kind of involvement that you'd like your child to have within our center, whether it's daycare, whether it's preschool, whether it's family programming, in the past we used to run Strong Start or parental involvement programming, there's no deadline. So I would just encourage anybody with small children to get in touch with their early learning centers in their communities once they're open and just say, hey, what do you have available for me and my family? And then just go from there. And as the LELP coordinator, one of the things that we've gotten very skilled at through COVID is outreach. So that's something that I will be working really hard in the next 8 to 12 months is continuing that outreach model into the other communities. So some of the programs that we've been able to pilot, like figuring out ways to spread those into the other communities through outreach. So even for those families that want to stay at home with their children because of their concerns around COVID, I'm hoping that we'll have a really strong outreach program for the next 8 to 12 months. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liza. Rochelle, a similar question came in with respect to deadlines for the submission of applications for post-secondary education. I understand there's one uniform policy that each of the 4 villages implement. So can you share with us what those deadlines might be?
You are unmuted.
Yes, the June 15th deadline is for the fall semester. The October 15th deadline is for the winter semesters, and the March 15th deadline is for the spring and summer semesters.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rochelle. Just going back and forth, scanning my document of incoming questions.
Bobby,
Yep.
sorry, could I just add something to the piece around the registration for the early learning? So I just wanted to typically there's a preschool program which is for 3s, 4s, and 5s. Each site does it differently. So those are more structured programs that are typically run. So if you're not looking for childcare, do talk to your centers about preschool, which starts typically in September. So, and I do know each site usually gets that information out on their own way, but those preschool programs run typically from September to June. So, and have little ceremonies at the end for graduation and stuff. So, and those are free programs in your community. So just, that is one structured program. So for preschoolers. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Liza. Another incoming live question for education coordinators or administrators. We only have one representative, Rochelle from Gidwinsiff. So perhaps, Bev, you may want to chime in on this as well. Taking the COVID-19 into consideration, has the deadline for submitting financial education assistance from village governments been extended or taken into consideration? Rochelle, did you want to weigh in on that? And perhaps Bev after?
You are unmuted.
I can't speak for the other village governments. I think we need to have a full vote on that though too. I know that it was brought up at one of our meetings also, and we need to have all 4 communities on board because it is a national policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle. Bev, did you have more to add?
Thank you for the question. And Rochelle is correct. We did have a meeting around COVID support when we reviewed the policy, and nothing was changed on the policy. And that's where that date is reflected. My understanding was the village governments did offer to receive the applications digitally, so that supported a lot of the students, so they didn't have to mail them in. But I do know that it was brought up, but there wasn't any confirmation from the collective body that review the policy together. In addition to that, we do have a framework of reviewing policy, so it would have to go even higher from the education administrators providing the delivery. Then it would have to go up to the CEOs and CEOs from each village government. And from there, it goes to the standing committees and executives. So there's a process for that. Recognizing that we were coming out of the 3 months, I'm gathering that from our meeting, there wasn't I guess a really hard, fast rule. But I haven't received any information that the applications were refused if they did come in. We don't have that information. My recommendation would be to communicate with each of the education administrators for each of the village governments as they do provide for that service in each of the villages.
Great, thank you, Bev and Rochelle. So switching over to some couple of questions we've received in relation to NEST, Gary. If I am a Nisga'a citizen but don't live on Nisga'a lands, am I still eligible for NEST services? And another eligibility question was, what age groups are eligible for NEST services?
Thank you, Bobby. Very good questions. We'll start with the second question first. Age group, 16 and older, seeking to enter the workforce or looking to acquire some training to pursue employment. So 16 and older would be the age group. With respect to your first question, it's a bit of a nuanced answer. Some programs, such as employment insurance funded initiatives, in accordance with our funding agreement, we would need to see that they're resident in our service area, and our original service area has always been Prince Rupert Terrace and the Nass Valley. For other funds, for individuals who are not EI eligible, it's more open, and we can serve Nisga'a citizens wherever they may reside to provide services. That's a kind of a long answer, but NEST will always work on a case-by-case basis to review how we can best help Nisga'a citizens.
Okay, excellent. Well, that about wraps up majority of the questions. Just a note to our participants, following these webinars, there's a question and answer document that is compiled, which contains both the incoming questions that we've received, as well as the questions that you posed today. So if you go to the COVID-19 section of our website, you'll find all of that information there. At this time, I would like to offer our panelists a minute or so for closing comments. Starting with you, Ryan, if you'd like to offer some comments.
I'd just like to say thanks to Bobby and all the panelists for participating today and allowing MMP and myself to be a part of this. It's a lot of great work happening here, so it's exciting to hear all the different things that everyone's doing. And to all the participants, if there's any questions, I would encourage you to check out the information that we've been working with the NLG team on their website. And if there's any kind of other areas of interest to anyone, if they can submit those to Bobby, I think that would be great, and we can make sure that we help provide the supports needed so everybody has the information they want. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ryan. Bev?
Thank you, Bobby. I'd like to thank Ryan for sharing that information regarding the federal and provincial programs. Those support our citizens, especially the students. And thank you to Bobby for moderating this session. And thank you to all of the panelists as well. And those that are operating in the background, we have Destiny Clayton, Denise Farrow, and Darren McCormick, and Chris Hill. Sorry. So yeah, thank you to everyone. And if you have any questions, even after this webinar, yes, feel free to send them to Bobby. Bobby will send them to each of us, or I can assist in getting them to each of our panelists here. So take care, stay safe, and enjoy your summer.
Thanks, Bev. Eliza?
I too would just like to express my gratitude for today's opportunity and just the opportunity to hear from all of the panelists. And I just it just demonstrates our commitment here in the Nisga'a Nation that we have, and the passion that we have to working with within our nations, our communities, and the children and families that we provide services to. If I could speak for those families, I mean, I'm one of those families, so, but just, you know, just to be patient and understanding. I think we're going to be stepping into some more uncertain times, and I think it's challenging, and I think that we need to remember that as we move forward, and just to have that love and compassion that we need to work with each other and to work with our communities. So, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Liza. Mr. Rhodes.
Thanks, Bobby. I just want to just take a second just to thank you for hosting this opportunity, and the other panel members for their presentations, and highly informative. And I'm glad that it's being recorded, and so that others can use it as a tool down the road. I just also want to just take a moment to thank the Nisga'a Nation for the last 3 years. They've been incredibly supportive of my initiatives, my ideas, to help kids grow and to help the nation's students succeed. And I think we've made some real good progress forward. And I really hope that you will continue to support Jill Jensen, who's the new superintendent replacing me August 1st, as much as you've provided support to me. So thanks, everyone. I hope the seeds that I planted as a farmer will grow here, as well as my garden's growing down in the Shuswap. So I wish you all the best for a productive startup in September. I hope that everybody's back to some degree of newer normal than the normal that we had to go through in the last few months. So all the best. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to work with the children of the Nisga'a.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. And it's been wonderful to get to know you in the past 3 years, and we're looking forward to working with your successor in the future. Thank you very much for your contributions to the nation. Who do we have next? Rochelle. We'll just unmute your phone.
You are unmuted.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you to all the panelists for all your extensive information. One thing I wanted to note, though, too, is that we don't have a portal for the online applications, but we do get emails from different community members. Well, other communities are asking for information for the other administrators. It might be a good idea for the Nisga'a Nation website to provide each of our communities information for Gilachdamics, for Gitwinsuk, Lachaldap, and Gingles, just to provide all of our information on the NLG website. But thank you for today, and stay safe, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Rochelle, and thanks for that suggestion. Perhaps through Bev, we can coordinate that. We can make that through my department, make that information available on our website. Dr. Nice, Deanna.
This is a pretty cool operation we've got here, Bobby. Thank you very much to you for organizing this, and thank you to the other panelists. This is very, very helpful information, and hopefully we'll get more people on board the next time we do this. I think it's a really good source of information. I just want to encourage people that are interested in any of our courses at WWN to register soon. You can always take your registration back. You could deregister, but if it's full, you won't be able to get in. So you want to register soon for the September courses, and you can contact Lori at the WWN for that. A couple of other things to watch for. UBC Press is publishing my dissertation, Bobby. And so we'll be working on reworking the dissertation for publishing in the next couple of months. I'm hoping to do it very quickly. And the other is, one other thing that WWN does is it oversees research for folks who are honoring Nisga'a research protocol. Not all do, but a lot do. And right now, you might have seen our presentations to Nisga'a government on the lava bed research. Well, Yannick, I'm happy to say, is going to be defending his doctoral dissertation. Yannick is a volcanologist from France, and he will be defending his dissertation this fall at Simon Fraser University. So I'll be attending that virtually to listen to his defense. And I think with that, thank you again. Always happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deanna. Mr. Patsy.
Thank you, Bobby. I want to thank Bobby and Nisga'a organizers for the opportunity to present NEST information. I want to congratulate my fellow panelists for a job well done and very good presentations today. And to those that are attending and tuning in and listening, thank you for your time and your interest in employment skills and training program offered by NEST. At NEST, we're extremely proud to serve the Nisga'a Nation. We're extremely honored to be walking along with you in your employment journey. And we will continue to do all we can to help you. And that includes being innovative, adopting the latest technology, and continuing to meet you where you're at. We strongly believe that a lift of the Nisga'a Nation involves everybody. And we're really pleased to be connecting with you all this way. I want to end by acknowledging those that are struggling, those that may be isolated, those Nisga'a citizens and our neighbors who may be struggling with COVID or other illnesses. They continue to be on our thoughts and prayers. And I want to thank and acknowledge my hardworking NEST team as well. They continue to do the very best they can in overcoming the barriers of connection and person-to-person support services that can be a challenge sometimes, but they too apply equal energy as well. So thank you very much. Please continue to follow us on Facebook if you haven't already. We're at Nisga'a Employment Skills and Training. I'll post a link there from our PowerPoint as well, but I'll also share it out with anybody that sends me an email. I'm happy to do that. So at NEST, we encourage you to call us, commit to your plan, and let's succeed together. Thank you, Bobby.
Great, thank you, Gary. And thank you once again to each of you for your presentations and your time this afternoon, especially to our attendees for tuning in today. Please encourage your family, friends, and colleagues, if they'd like to receive this information as well, to tune in. We've had numbers sort of fluctuate on participation, so this is a webinar, and we have the capability of hosting upwards of 500 people. So we're definitely hoping for those numbers so that we get this information out. And with that, our next webinar is on July the 15th. So 1 week from today, and the focus on that will be support for small businesses. So if you know a small business that has endured challenges as a result of COVID-19, please encourage them to tune into our website for information on how to register for that webinar. Again, next Wednesday at this time, 3 p.m. And we hope to see you there as well. So thank you to everyone. This was recorded and will be made available on our website at a later date. Thank you all. Take care of your families, and be safe. Have a good afternoon, everyone.